Welcome back for another installment of our voter education series, taking you through all of the various positions on the local Milford town ballot to learn a little bit more insight into each of these positions. And today we're so happy to be joined by Mark Calzolaio. He is one of the constables here in Milford. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
No problem. Thank you.
So, Mark, I feel like constable is one of those positions that we try to get into it in our coverage during the local election season. It's one that I feel like folks have a tough time getting a grasp on the duties and responsibilities there. So I'd love for you to just kind of paint us a big picture of what the basic roles of a constable are here in Milford.
Well, in years past, a constable had a much more authority similar to a police officer many, many years ago. And obviously that is diminished over time. And now a constable basically handles most of the civil services, such as, what do you want to call them? Divorce papers, obviously. Then you've got evictions. You've got serving of the summary process prior to evictions. A lot of custody battles. A lot of papers for custody battles. Subpoenas. And basically pretty much it. I mean, there's a lot of paperwork involved and just an eviction process alone is at least 3 to 4 times we have to go serve the papers because of the process involved. Divorces, they can get messy. And mostly the custody battles are probably the messiest because they're a very emotional process.
Sure. Now, most of the elected positions in Milford are boards and committees that will meet on a regular basis. I know constable is sort of a unique situation. How would you kind of describe the week-to-week, month-to-month schedule involved in being a constable?
Well, there's no real schedule. You get a call either from the court or generally from attorneys that are representing somebody for whatever it may be. They can fluctuate between 0 calls for a month to 25 calls in a month. You just never know what it's going to be. They seem to come in runs, though. I don't know why, but they do seem to come in runs. And there's a lot of evictions take place similar at the same time. When I say eviction, not the actual eviction itself, it generally doesn't get that far. It's usually fixed somewhere along the line between the landlord and the tenant or the court and the tenant. So we don't actually have to go in and do the actual removal because when we do, it's a process and it's not a pretty situation when that does happen. But like I said, those are few and far between locally anyway. The city, obviously, there'll be a lot more of that. But pretty much that's about all we do. I mean, we handle quite a few things. And you've got to keep a cool head, and you've got to try to keep the emotion part out of it, and sometimes you get more bees with honey.
For you personally, what made you interested in a position like this?
I'm really not sure. I mean, I'm really not. It became available and somebody contacted me and says, you want to become a constable? And I says, well, my dad was a constable for like 25, 30 years. And I says, yeah, why not? And just did. Put my name on the ballot, got elected, and been doing it now, 13, 14 years.
What do you feel is the type of experience that might come in handy for someone out there who may be interested in a position like this? What sort of experience qualifications do you think make for a good constable?
People skills. First and foremost, people skills. Non-aggressive behavior. Definitely not guns to the wall type attitude. And it's try to be pleasant. Every situation's separate and different. Some are more aggressive, and you've got to take a firm stand verbally. I've never had to get physically with anybody except one situation once, but it was close, but it didn't get that far. The ones that are most emotional, I would say, is the no trespass orders. And we get those from the town from time to time to serve a no trespass order. And generally, if it's a town-issued trespass order, we'll normally go with a police officer to keep things in check because those are the ones where people get very upset. Why are you serving me this? And well, it's for a reason. I mean, that's just the way it is. And again, you just try to be nice and pleasant, and you try to keep control of the situation, like any police officer is trained to do the same. I'm absolutely sure. But we just try to be pleasant and say, listen, I'm just a messenger here, guy. And if it gets more aggressive, and it can, I've had people take the thing and throw it on the ground and step all over it. Just look at them and say, you touched it, you served. you know. And there's a lot of guardianship too. Guardianship, they're generally okay, but some of them are kind of sad. So.
How do you describe the sort of the command structure within the constable? Is there someone that you regularly report to? Is it more of an on-call situation? How would you sort of describe?
It's an on-call situation. Okay. You know, the longer you're here, obviously, the more relationships you get with attorneys. And besides Ray Pagucci, I'm the second longest one here. And there's a lot of calls that some of the constables don't want to take. And like I said, I've got the experience, so I've been doing it for quite a while, and I know how to handle most of them. I know the legal background. I have legal background from 30-plus years ago when I worked for the state. And so I'm familiar with the verbiage, so to speak. But there's nobody we report to. The only one we report to is if I have questions, I'll either call Brian Murray or Jerry Moody and ask them, you know, what's our authority here or what's not our authority here. And they handle it and keep them active sometimes.
In terms of jurisdiction, is it just within the Milford community itself?
Not really. Generally, we try to stay right in Milford. We have authority. Some court office orders come through that'll say any constable in the state of Massachusetts, so you can serve anywhere you want. Generally, there's a lot of towns that don't have constables, and the police don't handle a civil process. So we handle it. So we'll go to these different towns. I try to stay within the Worcester County, but there are times we have to leave the county. But there is some place you can contact online saying I have to go to this county. Do I have the authority? They send you a thing. Yes, you have the authority to go. But it's not often. Usually if there's some place like, say, in Norfolk County or Middlesex, I'll call a constable out there and have them handle it. This keeps things better. But there's a lot of paperwork. In fact, I served one yesterday outside the area, but it's called a non-interested party service. And they'll use us, even though they don't need a constable or a deputy sheriff, they'll use us to go and serve it because it's more of a professional service, meaning you serve them, a constable served them. What you do is you serve it, but it's more of the people that you serve take it a little more serious because it was served by a constable rather than just John Smith coming off the street or in the mail, because, be honest with you, certified mail doesn't work so well. It really doesn't. People just don't pick it up.
In terms of compensation, is there compensation involved with this position?
There's two types of compensation. Generally, the attorney will pay you for your service, and they'll charge their client, etc. Or there's another one, the state, it's called, the state pays it for people that are indigent, that can't afford to have this type of service. And that generally applies to a guardian's case, a guardian's or a custody battle. Additionally, a divorce papers where out of Worcester Court, they'll determine the people are indigent and can't afford an attorney or a constable, and then you bill the state. And that's a whole process in itself. That's a lengthy process in itself. But that's the way you get compensated. And sometimes you don't charge, depending on the situation. I've had cases where I've just felt really bad for the individual who wants to have it served, and I just don't charge it. They just feel bad. There's a lot of sad cases out there, and a lot of cases where the people you're serving for are at fault, and sometimes I deny it. I'll say call somebody else.
Well, certainly a fascinating position, and I think I really appreciate you bringing some new insight for folks out in the community to really get a chance to absorb all the ins and outs of a position like this. Certainly a complicated position with a lot of important work to do here across the community. So we certainly hope that this is helpful to anyone out there looking to gain more knowledge about positions like this within the local community. And again, if this sounds like something that is of interest to you, we certainly hope that this inspires you to get more involved. But in the meantime, Mark, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.